Hi, grade 3. I hope you guys are all doing well. Today we're going to talk about something very interesting. They're called similes and metaphors. Okay, so figurative language, it's basically non-literal language. We talked about it in class. We talked about idioms. They're figurative language or non-literal. It means that they have another meaning. We can't understand the meaning word for word. They have another meaning instead. So figurative language, it means non-literal. There's three types of figurative language that we're going to talk about. We talked about idioms already. Okay, it's a group of words that means something else. And today I'm going to introduce you to another type of non-literal or figurative language called a simile and a metaphor. So I'm going to tell you why figurative language is so important to use, especially when you're writing. Okay? It's known to be a writer's tool. So whenever you want to write something, it should be your tool, trying to include as much figurative language as you can, like idioms, similes, and metaphors, because it puts pictures in the reader's mind. So instead of having just boring reading, it helps the reader to imagine something in their head. So it paints a picture instead of just having it simply boring without any meaning. So we usually use figurative language to describe something. Okay? And of course, the words in figurative language, they mean something else other than their literal meaning. So we don't read word for word, okay? We can't say the baby's cheeks are tomatoes. Of course, they're not really tomatoes. This is non-literal, okay? But it helps you to imagine in your head. It builds a picture in your head. In your head, you can imagine a baby with red cheeks, okay? Imagine just writing the baby's cheeks were red, okay? Or, which is better, the baby's cheeks are tomatoes. Okay, of course, using a figurative language makes reading and writing much more interesting. So similes, they are used to compare two things. There has to be the word like or as in a simile. So for example, you can write the apple is sweet as a honeybee. So here we are comparing, for example, the apple to a honeybee because they're both sweet. For example, roar like a lion. You can say the dog has a roar like a lion. Okay, we compare the dog's roar to a lion, meaning it's scary. Okay, so in a simile, there has to be the word as or like. Instead of saying the apple is sweet, we can use a simile. The apple is sweet as a honeybee. Instead of saying the dog has a loud bark, you can say the dog has a roar like a lion. Okay, so this is the main idea of simile. It's very important to look for the word like or as, and it's used to compare two things. So here are some examples of similes. Today I'm feeling as fresh as a daisy. Okay, of course you can see the word as. Okay, so it's comparing how I feel to a daisy because flowers are fresh. John runs as fast as lightning. Okay, instead of saying John runs fast or instead of saying I feel fresh today, we can use similes. Okay, we're comparing the way John runs to lightning, meaning very fast. My best friend is as stubborn as a mule. Okay, so we're comparing your best friend to a mule because they're both stubborn. Instead of saying my best friend is very stubborn, that's very boring. You can make it more interesting by comparing it to something else, by adding another noun to compare it to. Okay, so usually we have two nouns being compared. After that meal, I feel as fat as a pig. So we're comparing me to a pig. Okay, because I ate a lot. Okay, so pigs are fat and I feel fat. So there's a simile. Instead of saying I feel fat, you can say I feel as fat as a pig. There's the word as to make it a simile. My sister works as slow as a turtle. Okay, so here we're comparing the sister's work to a turtle. The two nouns are sister and turtle. They're being compared because they're both slow. Without my glasses, I feel as blind as a bat. Okay, look how interesting they make the sentence. So it's comparing I to a bat, okay, because they're both blind, or they don't see well, not really blind. That boy in my class is as funny as a clown. So we're comparing the boy to a clown. Okay, always after the as, we have to have something else, a new noun. Okay, so as a bat, as a clown, as a pig, as a mule, as a daisy, as lightning. Okay, so we're comparing the boy to a clown because they're both funny. Right now, I'm feeling as sick as a dog. Okay, so here we're comparing I to dog. Okay, a dog who's feeling sick. Have you ever felt as happy as a hippo? Because hippos are known to be like always happy and in the circus playing around. Okay, that's how we imagine them. So we're comparing someone to a hippo. Okay, because they're both happy. When she kissed me, I turned as red as a tomato. So we're comparing the guy, the person who's talking, to a tomato because they're both red. So instead of saying when she kissed me, I turned red, we can say I turned as red as a tomato. So here they all have the word as. Of course, they can also have like inside of them to make them a simile. So there has to be as or like. Some more similes here. They all have as or like. Busy as a bee. You can say my mother was as busy as a bee. Sparkle like diamonds. You can say the shoes were sparkling like diamonds, or the shoes sparkle like diamonds. You can say I'm hungry as a bear, or the paper is flat as a pancake. Okay, so you're comparing two things. Hard as a rock. You can say the chicken was hard as a rock. Okay, so those are some more examples of similes. So again, a simile, it's a comparison between two things using as or like. Okay, so a girl, she has blue eyes, blonde hair, a bright smile. Okay, we can compare her bright smile because the sun is also bright. Okay, so we can say her smile is as bright as the sun, or her smile is bright like the sun. So we're comparing the girl's smile to the sun. What do they have in common? They're both bright. You have to choose two things that have a similar adjective, and then you compare them. They're both bright. Now, a metaphor also compares two things, just like in a simile, because it's figurative language, it's non-literal, but we don't use the word as or like. We just say the comparison directly. The sun was a gleaming pearl. So we're comparing the sun to a pearl. We can't say it as a simile. We can say the sun was like a gleaming pearl. But here, without the word like or as, it would be a metaphor. Okay, if you don't see the word as or like, then it's a metaphor. My baby brother is a cute little teddy bear. So we're comparing the brother to a cute little teddy bear. Okay, without using the word as or like. My sister's memory is a camera that remembers everything we see. So it's comparing the sister's memory to a camera. directly saying it without saying like. Okay, instead of saying my sister's memory is like a camera, you say is a camera. Okay, the car seat is a fluffy cloud. You say it directly. Instead of saying the car seat is like a fluffy cloud, that would be a simile. To make it a metaphor, you don't use like or as. You just say it directly. The car seat is a fluffy cloud. Okay? You can say, for example, the man is a monster. That's a metaphor. If you say the man is like a monster, now that's a simile. Okay? Custard is happiness in a bowl. Okay? So that's a metaphor. You can say custard is like happiness in a bowl, but okay, that would make it a simile. Okay? So they're basically the same thing. They both compare, but the simile should have as or like, a metaphor doesn't. So a metaphor, it's a phrase, it's a group of word or description that compares two different things without using as or like. Okay? Riley is a chicken. That means he is afraid. Okay? I don't say he's like a chicken. He's a chicken. He is a walking dictionary. That means he's really smart. Okay? That's a metaphor used to describe someone who's really smart. Okay, so now we have to guess whether it's a simile or a metaphor. Although it was January 31st with 3 feet of snow on the ground, the interior of the ski lodge felt like a warm summer day. So we're comparing the ski lodge to a warm summer day, okay, because they're both warm. We have the word like, so it's a simile. My teacher says she has mountains of papers to grade this weekend. Okay, so here we're comparing the papers to a mountain, okay, because it's a high stack of papers. Here we don't have the word like or as, so it's a metaphor. The moon is Earth's night light, okay, because it gives light to the Earth. So here we don't have as or like, we're comparing the moon to a night light, so it's a metaphor. Lily's brain absorbs facts like a sponge soaks up water. We're comparing Lily's brain to a sponge because they both soak up water. We have the word like, so it's a simile.
Hi, and welcome to Gettable Grammar. This video is about two very commonly confused figures of speech, similes and metaphors. The learning intention for today is to understand the difference between similes and metaphors and how they're used to make writing more interesting. You know that you've succeeded at this when you can correctly identify and distinguish between similes and metaphors and use them in your own writing. Now, why do you need this? Similes and metaphors are used to make writing more interesting. Specifically, they're used in descriptive writing. Making your writing more descriptive and interesting is what English is all about. After all, why just write something when you can write it well? To start off, let's go through some definitions. Similes and metaphors are techniques used in writing to describe things. They're so popular because they create mental pictures. This makes reading and listening easier because rather than form words to process in our brains, we see images and scenes. We can get a much better idea of something if we can picture it. So using these techniques makes your writing much more engaging for your reader. Similes compare two different things by saying one thing is like the other. This is done by using the words like or as. For example, he was as fast as a sports car. Here, we don't need to explain that he's really fast because we picture a sports car which we know is really fast. Note the use of the word as in this simile. Another example of a simile is his hair was spiky like the top of a pineapple. We automatically picture the top of a pineapple here and apply that to what his hair must look like. Note the use of the word like in this simile. What simile can you think of to describe how sweet this lady smells? Metaphors are similar to similes in that they compare two different things, but rather than use the words like or as, metaphors simply say one thing is the other. One common metaphor is time is money. The point here is that time is extremely valuable. We know that money is valuable, so by saying that time is money, it takes on the characteristics of money, which we know is valuable. Another common metaphor is your brain is a computer. People use this metaphor when explaining how information is stored and how connections are made in the brain. By saying your brain is a computer, the brain takes on the functions that a computer has. This makes it easy for the reader to understand how the brain works. Metaphors can also be used without saying something is another thing, but rather implying it. This might sound complicated, but you probably encounter these metaphors everywhere without even realizing it. For example, we often hear people say that it's raining cats and dogs outside. We don't literally mean that there are cats and dogs falling from the sky, but that it is raining heavily. Here, the raindrops are so large they seem like small animals rather than water droplets. The water droplets take on the qualities of cats and dogs. In this case, we're talking about their size. When someone says there's an elephant in the room, they don't mean there is literally an elephant, but that there is an issue or a secret that's so big it seems to be taking up all of the space in the room. Its weight presses in on everyone. Now it's your turn. Shakespeare famously said that the world was a stage and that men and women were merely players. What do you think he meant by this metaphor? As you can see from these examples, similes and metaphors are everywhere. They evoke images by comparing things, and by doing this in your own writing, you will make it much more engaging and interesting for your reader. Thank you, and see you next time for Gettable Grammar.
Okay, this is a handout that I'm going to attach. It's explaining a simile, and you can usually tell if a simile is found in a sentence when you see the words like or as, and they both are used to compare two things in a sentence. Okay, and a metaphor, it also compares, but you don't see like or as. You usually see is, was. The snow was a white blanket. Her tears were a river. So we're comparing two things without using was, without using as or like. But you often see is, am, are, was, or were. So we directly say it. The clouds are balls of cotton. Her lovely voice was music to his ears. Here you have an exercise. You just have to write S if a simile, am if it's a metaphor. And here I want you to build your own similes and metaphor. Okay, the teacher is as nice as an, so add something, whatever you want. Okay, a new noun to compare the teacher or the barn or she or this room. Okay, if you want to change the an to add, just cross out the an if you want to make it is as nice as a or as an. So you're free to change the a or the an as you want. So build 4 similes and 2 metaphors and be creative. Have a good day.